Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. We have boots on the ground in Minnesota. Phil Perry, you know him, you love him. He's out there. He watched practice today. Let's cut right to the chase, Phil. Overall, what were your impressions of how the Patriots did? What was the length of the practice? What did they work on? And did they pick up where they left off against Washington or no? Just the floor is yours.
This was a knockdown, drag-out slugfest between the Patriots offense and the Vikings defense. And the reason I say that, Tom, just haymakers everywhere. If there wasn't a Viking sack, and there were a bunch of them, then there was a Patriots explosive play that just sort of felt like how the practice went. It was almost an all-or-nothing type of affair. And so from my perspective, as someone who thought it could look really, really ugly for this Patriots offense, specifically their young players on the left side of the offensive line, their young pass protecting running back, and their second-year quarterback in a new system, I thought it could go horribly, quite frankly, for them. And it did at times. But it wasn't that way throughout. And I think they should be encouraged to a degree by that because they got theirs. They were sacked 6 times. The Drake Maye offense was sacked 6 times, but he threw 2 long touchdowns to Travion Henderson and Matt Collins. He had a couple of other explosive completions to Pop Douglas. So a very up and down day, roller coaster day, plenty of bad for Mike Vrabel to critique, but enough in the way of explosive, successful moments that you come away from it saying, okay, we held our own there, in my opinion, if you're the New England Patriots.
Did they get better as the practice went along, considering they're going up against a unique defense? Garrett Bradbury had some sound. You can relay his quote. We won't run that, but did they get better as it went?
Yeah, Bradbury basically said this is as complicated as it'll get for us all year.
Reminder, too, that Bradbury played for Minnesota last year, so we understand it.
He was here for 6 years, so he's very familiar with the Flores defense and how difficult it can be to handle. And so while he acknowledged that they got, and he got specifically on one particular sack, Bradbury did, he acknowledged that they were able to hit a few home runs, too, when they blocked it up and they got it right. And for him, I think that was encouraging because, again, you're not going to get many defenses that line up on a given play the way Flores did a few times today, where he had guys looking like they were about to rush a punt, Tom. I mean, just nobody in the middle of the field.
Really?
Nobody back. 11 guys on the line, a couple corners maybe out wide, but otherwise you've got all sorts of bodies to try to sort through, and it can be really challenging. There was a stretch of practice where they gave up 3 consecutive sacks, Tom, when they were doing that creative Floresian type of thing at the line of scrimmage. Drake Maye's numbers, big picture. And this gets to the point that you were asking about whether they got better over the course of practice. Overall, I had him as 13 for 21, 6 sacks. There were a bunch of flags mixed in there. Pop Douglas had a fumble, but 13 for 21 in the past game with 6 sacks. Now, 4 of those sacks came in the first 10 plays. And so in the second half of 11-on-11 action, they got a lot better. I think they allowed 2 sacks on their next 14 or 15 dropbacks. So that's not great either, but it was better. It got a little bit better as it went on, and they almost closed on the Henderson long touchdown, which is about a 60-yard catch and run. He was wide open, wheel route, good throw from Drake Maye, and he just outran everybody to the end zone. That was supposed to be, it sounds like, the end of the 2-minute period for the top Patriots offense. Vrabel brought him back out for another 2-minute period that did not go as well. But they had their share of success, which, to be quite honest with you, surprised me a little bit today.
Yeah, surprised me too. I thought that they were in feel-good mode after Washington and might be primed for a little bit of a letdown. But you could tell on Sunday that Vrabel was going to the whip a little bit and saying, look, no, we're raising the bar. We didn't accomplish anything. We've just graduated to the next level of shit, to be candid with you folks. So now they dealt with it. They dealt with the shit in Minnesota, and here's Drake Maye's feelings on how they performed. Alex, drop it in.
Drake, so much made of this Brian Flores defense and the scheme and the pressure that he brings to opposing offenses. How did you feel like you guys as a unit handled that today?
Yeah, I think the guys at times, up there up front, I think I can help them out and be more demonstrative about where I want to send them and where I want them to go. But really, I think we blocked it up when we got it right, and I think there's times where they're going to get us. That's what he does. He tries to create kind of chaos, and I think it's good for us to see and know. And sometimes at the line, you may not know, hey, is this guy coming, or they're just bluffing that. So it's good for us to see it, and I think it's great for us to learn from.
Phil, I would be delinquent if I did not ask, how did J.J. McCarthy do?
Well, the Patriots defense was a little harder for me to track. I felt like my focus should be on the offense, and they were doing the double barrel shotgun thing that happens at these joint practices. So I was not watching the
two
defense
practice
as
fields
closely.
going at once.
However, I can tell you, I saw a very easy Marcus Jones interception where it looked like the receiver went one direction, J.J. McCarthy threw in another, and it just was right to the Patriots cornerback. Jabril Peppers had a great athletic pass breakup on what was probably an underthrown deep ball to Jordan Addison deep down the field. Marcus Jones in coverage there again. A number of sacks that the Vikings allowed. This is by our buddy Doug Kyde's account for the Boston Herald. 7 sacks to 7 different Patriots defenders. So
7 sacks for 7 brothers.
They had, Robert Spillane was there talking after practice about how, the coverage was really good. And again, they're without Christian Gonzalez. Carlton Davis was a participant in the team periods, but it looks like he's still limited to me. But Spillane was really highlighting the fact that some of those sacks that the Patriots were able to get was because the coverage was so good, they forced McCarthy to hold on to the ball. So if we had to choose based on the sample that I saw, Doug's reporting, what we're hearing from players after the fact, it sounds like Maye had the better day than McCarthy, and in large part because he took care of the football. This is something that's been an issue for Drake Maye of late, and he saw a lot of pressure today, still no picks, which is something, Mike Vrabel has to be happy about.
Mike Vrabel also was asked a very pertinent question by Phil. It's something we discussed earlier this week and at the end of last week, the expectation of leadership. And we're trying to pin down whether Vrabel is on Maye to be a better leader because Maye lacks, or whether Vrabel's just being a pain in the ass. It could be the latter. Here's Vrabel's answer to Phil out there in Minnie.
Well, it's not that it's lacking. I always want more. I think I have to as a coach. I think that we always want to try to take a player and we want to meet them where they're at and then be able to improve on that. So there's no finished products no matter what. We always can continue to work on things, focus on our reaction, our response to things, and how, as a quarterback or any player, you want it to be perfect, and it's never going to be perfect, and you can sit there and paralyze yourself sometimes by mistakes, and we need to focus on our responses to those mistakes that are so critical. There's so many snaps in the football game that it's just there's certain things that can go up and down, and performance is one of them, and our attitude and our effort is something that can't.
Nobody loves leadership talk more than Phil Perry. You know why? He's a tremendous leader, and that's why he's in the Senate. He also circled back, and he asked our guy Drake Maye, not our guy, the guy Drake Maye, whether or not he liked being badgered by the big old Croatian.
I think I want that. I want somebody to push me to do more for the team, have more of an impact with the guys around me. I feel like if I have that, and I feel like I'm not showing it myself, then I need somebody to push me along. And I think us guys on offense, the big veterans and Mike Owenu and Morgan and Hunter and Mondre and those guys and Steph Diggs are going to challenge ourselves to, hey, Garrett Bradbury in there to push ourselves to lead. And really, I think it starts with me, building those guys, and then from there, I think guys can kind of bounce off. And I really told those guys to push me because once I feel like they're pushing me, I feel like I can give back.
Drake, two final questions, guys. Drake, do you want to be a captain? Does that matter to you?
I think it's a great honor. I think it's something that you don't take lightly around here, especially with this Patriot teams in the past with the captains they had. You always it's a aspiration to be a captain, but there's a lot of guys on this team that deserve that and have played a long time in this league.
So those two answers, bud. You were there. You tell me how should I interpret?
Well, listen, number one, Vrabel basically acknowledged what we have seen and what we have posited based on what we've seen from him on the practice field, and even when he's behind a microphone, is that he is trying to draw more from Drake Maye in that regard from a leadership standpoint. And it's not because he thinks he's lacking there necessarily, but it's because he thinks he can get more. And that's what he wants. And for that position, I think him handling May as closely as he's been handling him, to me, is a good thing. And that's something a head coach should do. And when, May was asked about it, when I asked him about it a little bit later in the day, it sounds like it's something that he wants. And so, you put those two things together, you should get a pretty good leader by the end of the year, is what I'm guessing. I think some of that is innate, Tom. I don't know. You've covered a lot of football players, and you've covered arguably the greatest leader, on the field leader, that we've ever seen in the sport, closer than anyone. How much of that was innate? How much of that could be coached? How much of it did he just develop on his own over time? I think my opinion is it is something that has to be learned. I wonder if Mike Vrabel can expedite the process. I'm not sure he can teach him word for word and, motion for motion how to do it. But I think if he continues to push him the way he has, May can kind of find his path maybe a little bit sooner on his own than he otherwise might.
I do think leadership is innate, but I think tapping into it has to do with, as you pointed out, birth order. I really think, like, Brady had 3 older sisters who probably weren't shy with telling him to shut up, get the hell out, or be supportive of him at different times. And he had to find his voice, I would imagine, in a house like that. Parents were tremendous. Mother was a tremendous athlete, sweetest people you could ever find. But I would imagine that he had, I don't know, I loved your point about the birth order and Drake Maye being the youngest of 4 highly competitive brothers. And, you get in where you can fit in. And the best way to make your bones is, and I hate when guys talk about this, and it's constant. Ever since I've covered the league, every sport, I just want to lead by example. Everyone does. No, I'm not much of a vocal leader. I lead by example. Everyone wants to do that. Do that, and also understand that depending upon your personality, it's going to be incumbent upon you to, at times, tell guys in your own voice, not trying to be somebody else, probably could use a little more of this and a little less of that. Or, I really liked what you did there. Or, you're just about to get it. Or, we got to get the flip out there and start working on this. Or, you're going to get cut if you don't fix it. Or, sorry, you got cut. Have a nice life. So I think all of that stuff enters into it. The funniest thing about Vrabel as a leader is he was an only child. And I find the only child dynamic interesting. Belichick was an only child, and I think that there are aspects of Bill that you look at it and say, that makes some sense. He's very Bill-centric. But Vrabel is incredibly outgoing. And I remember when I covered him as a player, I didn't play. He would be in the locker room. And I remember clearly him walking up, because he was in the NFLPA. I think he was their main rep or their second rep. Just walking up to some guy who'd been signed to the practice squad. He goes, Mike Vrabel, how you doing? I'm your player rep here. Welcome to the team. Just, you don't see that. And just, that's how he is. It's how he's wired. And everybody's different, but anyway, we're off the leadership stuff, and we're on to whether or not.
Just one more thing I want to say. I do think he is sometimes, Drake Maye, realizing where he lacks there. There was a moment where I asked him about how they handled all the pressure that was thrown at them today, and whether he was told by someone else or he's just acknowledging it himself. One of the first things out of his mouth was, those guys up front, there are times where I could probably be a little bit more demonstrative in terms of where I want them to go. And so that, to me, if he's recognizing it on his own, that's great. Even if he's not, if he's accepting that criticism as true and I need to apply that next time we're on the practice field here, I think that's, one way you can turn yourself into a better leader. It's not just about like rah and getting the guys going.
No, it's like the
Sometimes
19th.
it's about actual physical execution on the field. If you don't feel confident enough, or you don't feel like you are a leader enough to the point where you can start, screaming and yelling at guys at the line of scrimmage, like that's going to inhibit their ability to do what they're supposed to do in that play, keep you protected. So like he has to develop those leadership muscles in order for them to have success on the field.
Yeah, what's your level of command and confidence, and then guys will follow you. Do you think Mike Vrabel's getting grouchier on the field? I'm not saying it was, stand up for the first 5 or 6 months, but I can feel him starting to ratchet up the pressure. And I think his tolerance for, oops, I'll try and figure that out is gone now. And I think that the entire coaching staff, because of its experience, understands what it should look like on August 15th. So whether it's Marone or Todd Downing, who we'll get to in a second, or Josh McDaniels or Terrell Williams, and the defensive coaches, I think that they're ready to say, this is basically as important as any week of football we're going to have, and you better play well. Did you get that vibe there? Because I was guessing it might feel like that.
You know what? I felt like he was in a very good mood at the podium today. He's talking about cheese curds, and he and I actually had a little bit. I don't know if you heard any of this. I don't know if it made it into the transcript, but he was happy to be here. He obviously really likes Kevin O'Connell. They had a joint practice session together back in 2023. But he's talking about, I'm happy to be here. Love cheese curds. And I kind of made a face in the front row. He's like, you don't like cheese curds? I said, well, it feels a little heavy. It's not really like a performance meal. He's like, I don't know. I'm not really trying to perform out here. I said, I don't know. You're pretty active out here, Mike. I kind of hemmed and hawed. So he was in like a, going back and forth kind of mood. And then on the field, I did find it interesting. He's with the offense the entire time. He's behind the quarterback. He is with them every single play. I'm not sure he spent a play on the defensive field, which was just a few feet over.
They stated before the reason was he wants to know the offense so well, he knows the defense.
Right.
But do you still think that just simply holds? I mean, wouldn't you want to glance over there, or is he just say, I'll look at it later?
I think it's got to be that's got to be part of it. But I think the other thing is this Drake Maye, tutelage thing. I think he really wants to see how he operates the huddle and what the situation is like. And it might also be he knows they're more talented on the other side of the ball and they're just going to be more ready to go. And the offense is really the side of the ball that needs more work. And so he wants his brain devoted to that right now. But I didn't sense a lot of blow-ups from him. There was an interesting moment where on the long touchdown that Drake Maye threw to Mac Hollins, Mac Hollins felt as though, he said after practice, the energy was not good in practice. And so he's screaming. He was left wide open. Drake Maye hits him with a good ball, easy run in for a touchdown. He's screaming as he gets into the end zone before he even gets in. And then as soon as he crosses the goal line, he punts it into almost out of the practice stadium over the bleachers, but into basically the second to last row of the bleachers.
Look out, Bryce Ballinger.
With the fans there, and always strong feet. He's doing all that walking around with no shoes on.
Sure.
And I thought I could hear Vrabel screaming at him because he ended up getting unsportsmanlike penalty flag. There were officials there. And that was really the one time I thought I could hear him. But by the time I got my binoculars back turned around, I don't know if it was him for sure, but it sounded like Vrabel maybe screaming at Mac Hollins. Other than that, they did have some screw-ups. They had some plays that I'm sure Vrabel hated. They had 2 holds the top offense did. They had the Mac Hollins unsportsmanlike. Pop Douglas fumbled the ball. They had what looked like a false start that wasn't called. There were opportunities for him to get after them, and I'm not sure he did a whole lot of that. The one thing that I saw from him where it might indicate that he's trying to actually make it harder on them than normal was the end of the practice where they had this great 2-minute drive that ends in a 60-yard touchdown to Travion Henderson. The offensive linemen are screaming, yelling. They're thrilled. They must have thought their practice was over. Josh Dobbs' offense goes on the field. They're done. Vrabel brings the first offense back on the field. And I wonder if that was in some way because he didn't want them to end on the high note that they ended on. You know what I mean? That felt like a very almost Belichickian thing to do. let's make it hard on him again here. Like, we can't have him just, whooping it up all the way back into the locker room because they finished on a touchdown. And they ended up having a kind of a crappy 4-play sequence there that included another sack. So let's keep an eye on that tomorrow. I want to see if we get any ornery Vrabel. I didn't notice a lot of it today.
And just briefly, the Dobbsian offense.
Not great.
Brutal
and I'm
and
just
short.
realizing that a pen exploded in my new shorts, and that it's just one of these things that happens when you're on the road and you're at a joint practice. I've got an exploded pen. I've got ink all over my new shorts, and I'm devastated. But
Can you show the YouTube folks?
It's a little too close to the crotch
I got it.
region.
I understand.
Yeah.
For a second, I
So
thought you said your appendix exploded. Appendix exploded. And I was like, you better get there quick. That happened to me in 2008. It hurt. It was perforated.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Perforated. I was at the gym. I thought I was constipated for a week because it just kept throbbing. And then I found, this really hurts. I'm going to the hospital. It was bad. All right. Be that as it may. No one gives a crap.
PSA, the Dobbs offense, though, Dobbs threw 2 picks. One was pick 6. He was sacked a couple times himself. Not great. He did have a nice
playing like Lou Dobbs out there.
Nice leaping completion to Javon Baker. He had another. Let me see. I think it was maybe it was in the 7-on-7s. Javon Baker caught a bomb just straight down the sideline. Good throw, good adjustment. Sort of hit another gear. Baker did to track down the football, ran it in for a touchdown. Dobbs was great in the 7-on-7s, but his offense was pretty tough in the 11-on-11 portion.
Campbell and Wilson, they might have gotten exploited a little bit in that 4-sack, 10-play situation.
Yeah, so I had Will Campbell as being on the scene for 2 sacks. One was one of these where he just wasn't looking in the right direction. There's 6 guys, 7 guys maybe at the line of scrimmage, and he's as soon as the ball snapped, he's looking inside, thinking his responsibility is there, and someone that he's maybe not accounting for. Now, I should note, that may have been purposeful on his part. He might have done the right thing. Sometimes when you see those all-out blitz looks, you understand as an offense and as a quarterback, we can't get all these guys blocked. I have 5 linemen and maybe a running back, and maybe I can bring in a tight end, but depending on the play, you might not want to do that. A lot of times, they will leave Tom as the guy on the very end because that's the guy who's farthest away from the quarterback. And so give me the most time humanly possible. Let's leave that guy be and block everybody else. If that was the case, it felt like Drake Maye wasn't aware because he didn't get rid of the football very quickly. The guy was right off of Will Campbell's side for the sack. He also got beat with an outside to inside move. Let's keep an eye on this. These inside moves for Will Campbell. He set really hard to the outside. Jonathan Grenard, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. Good pass rusher for the Minnesota Vikings. Grenard outside, then inside, got right to Drake Maye. So he was on the scene for 2. Jared Wilson was beaten for 1. I had Micah Wenu beaten for 1, Garrett Bradbury beaten for 1, and Jack Westover, the immortal Jack Westover, beaten for a sack as well.
Not his best, over. All right, I wrote this today about Stefon Diggs, and I'm going to let you listen to it, and I want to hear your take on this. My surprises of camp. And I said the Patriots are understandably managing the reps of Diggs. They're de facto number 1. He's had moments where he looks smooth and fast, and it's clear Maye likes to throw his way, but he had a drop on the goal line during Sunday's practice, and the drop that led to a Maye pick in the intra-squad. I also found this quote from Patriots wide receivers coach Todd Downing interesting. This was from Sunday. Quote, the process for him is going to have to be learning this system and learning exactly what the quarterback and what Josh are looking for and making sure he's in the right spot at the right time. As he continues to refine that, I think he'll continue on the trajectory we expect him to be on. End of his quote. So I also wrote this then. That is not, he's fine, he's a pro, we all know what Steph can do. That quote from Downing smacks of urgency, and it probably wouldn't have been uttered if Diggs was always in the right spot at the right time and fully refined in his work right now. There's a learning curve, no doubt, but it's clear that this staff is not given to tiptoeing around what it is seeing and what it expects to see. How did Steph Diggs look today? And then do you think my inferring that Downing's like, hey, let's go, is on the money?
I don't know. I do, because I don't know why he would say it if it wasn't in some ways an issue right now. And it is funny that he said that. And I saw that quote too, and I made the same sort of mental note that you did. And then on the second play of 7-on-7s, it looked to me like Stefon Diggs wasn't sure where to line up. And he eventually did get aligned, and he went into motion, and he ended up catching the football. And he caught 2 passes in a row in 7-on-7s, both in the short area, the shallow area of the field. He caught 2 passes on 2 targets in 11-on-11s. So he's not hugely involved, I would say. 2 targets when you're dropping back 26 or 27 times, as Drake Maye did today, is not an incredibly high percentage for a guy that a lot of people still view as a number 1 type of receiver. I don't, and I'm on the record as saying that, and I think he'll be okay for them. I just don't think he's going to be that 1,000-yard receiver that people are hoping he will be. The best play was a very clean off the line release and a very well placed football on a shorter throw, but on a slant that was
11-on-11.
11-on-11. He caught it in stride. It's right on his face, a little bit out in front of him, allowed him to pick up good yards after the catch. And so good job by him to get open as quickly as he did, and good, nice throw from Drake Maye. But, again, 4 targets between 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s total is not as many as, I could go through it, but not as many as Pop Douglas. I don't believe it was as many as Travion Henderson. So to me, he is not the most frequently targeted guy anymore in these practices. It feels like on kind of a regular basis.
Yeah, and I think that when the season rolls around, and I would have said this a month ago, Pop Douglas is going to see more balls his way. The same way Wes Welker would see more throws than Randy Moss. Those 2 players are not Randy Moss and Wes Welker, I know. But it works in that fashion, even though he's not an ex-receiver. You got to get ready for early edition. We're taping this right before early edition. I'm sure you haven't had a break since you got out there earlier today. So I'm going to put a cork in it. We'll talk a little bit more on early edition about Steph Diggs and so much more. Thanks for doing a great job out there. Really fun, really high energy. Really appreciate you. And we're not going to do this tomorrow, folks, okay? Because we have Quick Slants, the first Quick Slants of the season. Phil will be on Quick Slants at 6 p.m. with me. And then we will give you a Friday pod to get you ready for the big ball game. Phil will be on the call on Saturday. Phil, stop. He's windmilling his arm. You're going to work out there, aren't you? Curds. All right. See you soon, everyone.